You think your Bubby spent Sunday morning sleeping in? Wrong. By the time the sun peeked over the Bronx apartment buildings or the Miami condo balconies, she was already elbow deep in flour, onions frying, and a pot of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. These weren't dainty tea party brunches. These were loud, chaotic, feed-the-whole-family spreads that started at 10 a.m. and ended when the last cousin finally admitted defeat. So grab a bagel, smear some cream cheese thick enough to spackle walls, and let's walk back into those smoky, cinnamon-sweet kitchens for the 20 brunches your Bubby made the day you got your Hebrew name. Bagels, lox, and the whole Megillah platter. Bubby didn't trust store-bought lox. She bought a whole side of salmon every Thursday, buried it under a mountain of kosher salt, dill, and peppercorns that could preserve a pharaoh, and let it cure in the fridge until Sunday. Then she sliced it paper thin with the electric knife she got for her 50th anniversary, slices so translucent you could read the newspaper through them. On the platter went the nova, belly lox, smoked sable, because it's a mitzvah, kippered salmon, and whitefish salad she whipped with mayo and celery so fine it disappeared. Herring in cream sauce with purple onions that made grown men cry, and a whole whitefish with its head still on, staring at you like it knew your secrets. Tomatoes and cucumbers sliced so thin they curled, 3 kinds of cream cheese, plain, scallion, and vegetables so thick it needed structural engineering, capers that rolled everywhere, and bagels, H&H shipped overnight, or boiled in her bathtub when the mood struck. You built a sandwich the size of a hubcap, added a pickle spear, and ate leaning over the sink, because the table was already full of cousins doing the same. One bite, and you understood why brunch lasted 4 hours. Blintzes with 3 fillings. Bubby made the batter Thursday night. Eggs, milk. A little seltzer for lightness, then fried crepes so thin they were practically lace. Friday she filled them. Farmer cheese sweetened with sugar and vanilla, blueberry from berries she picked herself in the Catskills and froze in Ziplocs labeled "Don't Touch," and potato onion for the purists, rolled like tiny edible Torah scrolls, stacked between wax paper and refrigerated until Sunday. Then, the magic. Each blintz pan-fried in butter until leopard-spotted and singing, served on her best platter with bowls of sour cream thick enough to spackle walls, warm blueberry compote, and cinnamon sugar in a shaker that never worked right. You ate cheese ones first, then potato with applesauce, then blueberry with extra sour cream, then lied and said, "I'm full," while reaching for one more. The cousins who helped fold got the burnt ones, crispiest edges, best flavor. Potato latkes? Yes, even for brunch. Hanukkah in July? Bubby didn't care. She grated 10 pounds of potatoes and 3 onions by hand on the box grater that had lost 2 knuckles worth of skin over the years. The mixture went into a tea towel and was wrung over the sink until her arms shook. Eggs, matzo meal, salt, pepper, and the secret, a pinch of baking powder for lift. Fried in schmaltz rendered from chickens she'd saved since Rosh Hashanah. Each latke hit the pan and sizzled like gossip. Drained on brown paper bags from the grocery, then piled high. Applesauce simmered with cinnamon. You ate them straight from the stack while she yelled, "Heise Latkes," and swatted your hand with the spatula. The ones that broke were cook's treat. By the time the table was set, half were gone. Challah, French toast, with orange zest. Friday's challah that didn't get finished became Sunday royalty. Bubby sliced it thick, laid it in a pan, poured over a custard of eggs, heavy cream, vanilla, orange zest from fruit she candied herself, and a shot of slivovitz for the flavor, not the alcohol. Covered and refrigerated overnight, so every crumb drank deep. Sunday morning she fried it in butter until the edges caramelized and the kitchen smelled like a bakery on Sunday morning. Served with warm maple syrup she heated with a cinnamon stick and powdered sugar that vanished into the crust like Florida snow. You ate 3 pieces and claimed you were just tasting. Shakshuka that could wake the dead. The cast iron skillet never left the stove. Bubby started with olive oil, onions, red peppers, and enough garlic to scare vampires back to Transylvania. Added tomatoes she canned last summer, cumin, sweet and smoky paprika, a pinch of caraway, and harissa if Uncle Morty was coming. Simmered until thick, then made wells and cracked in eggs fresh from the farmer's market. Into the oven until the whites set and the yolks stayed runny. Out came a pan of red gold sunrise, served with chunks of challah to sop up every drop. You burned your mouth every time and considered it a religious experience. Kreplach in golden chicken soup. The soup started Friday before candle lighting. 2 fat hens, a bundle of carrots, parsnips, celery root, a whole onion browned in the pot for color, dill stalks tied with the feathery tops saved for later, and a whisper of parsley root because it makes the flavor dance. By Saturday night, the broth was liquid 24-karat gold. While it cooled, Bubbe rolled Kreplach dough so thin the table showed through like a ghost. The filling: leftover chicken or beef chopped fine, sautéed onions, a pinch of sugar, salt, and enough black pepper to make you cough once in respect. Each triangle sealed like a love letter, edges crimped with the tines of a fork that had seen 3 continents. Sunday morning, the Kreplach were slipped into gently simmering soup until they bobbed to the surface like little dumplings with secrets. Bowls were filled at the table. Broth first, then 5 or 6 Kreplachs swimming like ducks, finished with a snowfall of fresh dill. The first spoonful was silk, warmth, and a flavor explosion that made you close your eyes. You always burned your tongue and always took another spoonful immediately because some blessings are worth the pain. Noodle Kugel, sweet with golden raisins. Leftover Lokshen never went to waste. Sunday morning, Bubbe mixed wide egg noodles with a whole container of cottage cheese, sour cream, eggs, sugar, vanilla, and golden raisins she'd plumped in hot tea with a drop of rum nobody needs to know about, poured into the same Pyrex that had survived the boat from Europe, topped with crushed cornflakes tossed in melted butter and cinnamon sugar until it looked like Hanukkah gelt. Baked low and slow until the edges turned mahogany and the center jiggled like it was dancing the hora at a wedding. When it came out, she sliced it while still bubbling so the crispy corners went to whoever helped stir. The middle pieces stayed soft and creamy, the edges snapped like candy. You ate 1 square warm with a spoon, then snuck cold midnight slices straight from the fridge with your fingers and pretended you were dreaming. Lokshen Kugel. Savory, peppery, crispy edges. Same noodles, opposite sole. This kugel was cottage cheese, eggs, sour cream, and onions that had cried in oil for an hour until sweet as candy. Black pepper. So much black pepper your eyes watered in Yiddish, Hebrew, and English. Poured into a pan, topped with more crispy onion strings fried until they looked like haystacks. Baked until the top resembled desert dunes after a sandstorm, and the edges turned into potato chip crunch. You could hear the snap from across the room. The corner pieces were currency. Cousins bribed, begged, and bartered for them. The middle stayed creamy and peppery enough to clear sinuses across 3 boroughs. Served with a shrug and, it's just leftovers, but everyone knew it was a masterpiece. Smoked whitefish salad on pumpernickel. Every Sunday, a whole smoked whitefish arrived from the appetizing store on Essex or Zabers, skin peeled back like a theater curtain. Bubbe sat at the kitchen table with a cigarette dangling and picked every sweet, smoky flake from the bones, mixing it with Hellmann's mayo, never Miracle Whip, celery minced so fine it vanished, raw onion that could sterilize a hospital, and a squeeze of lemon for brightness. Piled high on dark pumpernickel or rye, still warm from the bag, topped with a slice of beefsteak tomato and a kosher dill spear. You built a sandwich the size of your face, ate it leaning over the sink so the juices didn't ruin Bubbe's plastic tablecloth and still dripped on your shirt. The leftovers went into a Tupperware that mysteriously emptied by Monday. Herring salad with beets and apples. Bubbe called it gehackte herring for people with teeth. Pickled herring cut into perfect cubes, mixed with roasted beets that turned everything Barbie pink. crisp Granny Smith apples for crunch, hard-boiled eggs, onions, a splash of vinegar, and just enough sugar to make your cheeks pucker in delight, chilled overnight in the cut glass bowl that only left the cabinet for company or Shiva. Served ice cold with rye bread or bagel chips, and a warning, "Don't fill up on this, there's Blintzes coming." Nobody listened. You ate it by the forkful until your tongue was pink and your breath could stop traffic. The bowl always came back scraped clean, and Bubbe pretended to be shocked every single time. Matzah Brei, scrambled, never flat. Passover or July, Bubbe didn't wait for calendars. She ran sheets of matzah under cold water until just soft, crumbled them into a bowl like stale snow, then beat in eggs, 1 per sheet, plus 1 for the pan, salt, and enough black pepper to make you sneeze twice. The skillet, her grandmother's from the old country, was already hot with a lake of butter. In went the mixture, scrambled low and slow until it turned fluffy golden clouds with crispy edges that snapped like gossip. Some cousins liked it sweet with cinnamon sugar and applesauce. The grown-ups took it savory with salt and more pepper. Bubbe always made 2 pans, 1 sweet, 1 salty, because peace in the family starts at breakfast. You ate it straight from the skillet while she yelled, "Heiss," and swatted hands with the spatula. The broken pieces were cook's treat, and nobody argued. Leftovers, rare, got reheated Monday morning and tasted even better cold with a smear of cream cheese, lox, eggs, and onions. The skillet was permanent real estate on the stove. Bubbe sliced a Spanish onion so thin it was practically chiffon, cooked it low in butter for 20 minutes until it melted into sweet golden ribbons, and went handfuls of Nova lox torn into silky strips, never cut with a knife, that's for amateurs. A dozen eggs beaten just enough to swirl, poured over the top, then gently folded until barely set and still glossy like a Miami sunrise. The whole pan turned coral pink and smelled like Sunday in the Catskills. Served family style with a mountain of bagels, extra cream cheese, and tomatoes for the health conscious. You scooped a giant portion, added capers, and ate until your breath could clear a room. Bubbe always slipped the softest onion-heavy part to the grandchild who helped set the table. Cheese babka, French toast casserole. Saturday's leftover cheese babka never stood a chance. Bubbe sliced the cinnamon cheese swirl thick, layered it in her deepest Pyrex like edible shingles, then poured over a custard of eggs, whole milk, vanilla, orange zest, and a generous glug of Manischewitz. For the flavor, darling. Covered with foil and refrigerated overnight, so every crumb soaked up the goodness. Sunday morning it went into the oven low and slow until the top caramelized into crunchy ridges and the cheese filling bubbled like lava. Out came a golden masterpiece dusted with powdered sugar and sliced while steaming. The edges were crispy, the middle custardy, the cheese pockets molten. You ate it with a fork and a napkin tucked into your collar because dignity was optional. Burekas with spinach and feta or potato. Phyllo dough thawed under a damp towel. Brushed with 50 layers of butter until it shone like satin. Filling 1, spinach wilted with dill, scallions, and feta that crumbled like chalk. Filling 2, mashed potatoes mixed with onions fried golden in butter, folded into perfect triangles, sealed with a crimp, sprinkled with sesame or poppy seeds, baked until puffed and leopard spotted. You grabbed one straight from the tray and burned your fingers every time. The potato ones vanished first, comfort in a pocket. The spinach ones were for cousins pretending to be healthy. Bubbe always hid a few in the warming drawer for later. Israeli salad, so fresh it crunched. Bubbe chopped like a machine. Tomatoes so ripe they burst. Cucumbers peeled in stripes, red onion minced fine enough to make you cry in 2 languages, parsley chopped until it looked like green confetti. Dressed at the absolute last second with fresh lemon juice, good olive oil, salt and pepper, no garlic. This isn't shakshuka. Served ice cold in a bowl that sweated rings on the tablecloth. You ate it between bites of everything else, and somehow it reset your palate like a magic trick. Bubbe added not diced green pepper when the mood struck and called it Tel Aviv style. Malawach with grated tomato and shug. Bubbe brought the recipe from a Yemenite neighbor in Queens and made it her own. Frozen malawach dough fried in a skillet until it puffed like a balloon and shattered into flaky layers. Served with hard-boiled eggs mashed with salt, fresh grated tomato mixed with a pinch of sugar, and skug so spicy it could wake a coma patient. Cilantro, garlic, chili, cardamom, ground to a green paste that cleared sinuses across 3 boroughs. You tore the malawach, scooped tomato, added skug, folded, and cried happy tears. The cousins who couldn't handle heat got honey instead and were mocked gently. Rugelach 3 ways: raspberry, chocolate, cinnamon. Thursday night, Bubbe made the dough: cream cheese, butter, flour, a pinch of salt, beaten until silky, then chilled overnight. Friday she rolled it paper thin on the same table her mother used in the old country. 3 fillings weighted in bowls: lekvar, prune butter thick as tar, chocolate made from melted baker's bars mixed with sugar and walnuts, and cinnamon walnut with enough sugar to make your teeth sing. Each quarter of dough got spread, sprinkled, rolled into perfect logs, sliced into crescents, and curved like little smiles. Egg washed, baked until the bottoms caramelized and the tops turned golden. Out came trays of raspberry that oozed red jewels, chocolate that cracked like thunder, and cinnamon that snowed sugar across the table. The second they were cool enough to grab, cousins descended like locusts. Bubbe always hid a dozen in a Tupperware marked string beans and pretended not to notice when we found them. The broken ones were for tasting and disappeared first. Tegla sticky honey balls. Rosh Hashanah or Sunday in March. Bubbe didn't need an excuse. Tiny dough knots boiled in a cauldron of honey, fresh ginger slices, orange peel, and a shot of slivovitz. So the angels don't get bored. Cooked until the teglach swelled and turned amber, then toasted hazelnuts and candied cherries were tossed in like rubies. The whole sticky volcano poured onto a greased platter to cool into one giant edible gem. You pried pieces off with sticky fingers while she warned, "You'll ruin your appetite," and you absolutely did. 1 bite, crunch, chew, pure honey love that glued your teeth together for hours. The bottom pieces soaked up extra syrup and were worth actual money. Bubbe always saved the last chunk for whoever washed the pot without being asked. Sour cream coffee cake with streusel that fell like snow. The tube pan lived permanently greased on the top shelf. Yellow cake batter loaded with full-fat sour cream, vanilla, and lemon zest, so it stayed moist for days. Swirled through the middle, cinnamon, cocoa, and chopped walnuts. The real star, streusel made with 2 sticks of butter, brown sugar, flour, and more cinnamon, piled so high it avalanched into the pan like a blizzard. Baked until the house smelled like a Brooklyn bakery at dawn, and the top cracked open like the Red Sea. Sliced warm, the fallen streusel was scooped up with fingers and called chef's bonus. You ate it with coffee in a glass because mugs were for goyim, and you ate another piece just to even it out. Bubbe's secret recipe cheese Danish. The recipe was never written down. It lived in her head and her hands. Cream cheese dough rolled so thin you could see the table's wood grain. Filling, farmer cheese beaten with egg yolks, sugar, vanilla, lemon zest, and the secret nobody discovered until after the Shiva. 1 teaspoon of orange flower water smuggled from an Arab grocery in Jerusalem. Twisted into crowns, brushed with egg wash, baked until puffed and golden, with cracks that showed creamy white underneath. Out came a tray of Danish that looked store-bought but tasted like childhood. A thin fondant glaze was drizzled while still hot, so it melted into every crevice. You ate one standing over the sink because sitting was impossible, then ate another for comparison. The cousins who got the recipe still argue over measurements, but we all agree. 1 bite, and you heard Bubbe's voice saying, "Eat, Kinder, eat." So yes, Every single one of these 20 dishes showed up on Sunday brunch tables from Brooklyn to Boca, from Chicago to Tel Aviv. Wherever a Bubbe could light the stove and yell, "Es Gesundheit." Some were born in the shtetl, most were born in someone's new country, but all carried the same fierce message: eat. You're too thin. I love you. If this video made you smell onions frying and hear your Bubbe's voice through the screen, smash that like button like you're stealing the last Blintzes. Subscribe, ring the bell, and tell us in the comments, which one would you beg Bubbe to make just one more time? Now go put the coffee on. We're bringing back even more recipes your ancestors swore were top secret. L'chaim!